Hey, what's up, Culture Drop? This video is about brainstorming. Specifically, I'm gonna share 5 tips with you to have better brainstorming, more effective brainstorming conversations with your team. This is a great suggestion for a topic that came in from a colleague of mine, and I was like, I haven't talked about brainstorming for a while. This is a good one. So, and covering a lot of different aspects of brainstorming. How do you get people to share that otherwise wouldn't? How do you avoid sort of groupthink and conflicts? And just how do you make it a more productive, good space? Getting right into it. Number 1. This is something I made a video about before many, many years ago, so I'm gonna touch on it again. It's upward brainstorming, which is a concept that I sort of coined. The idea of upward brainstorming means if we're brainstorming about something as a team, to create a sort of ground rule for that says, for this portion of this brainstorming, you're not allowed to detract. So you're not allowed to pipe up and say, that won't work because of this. We sort of have a dedicated time where it's like you only are either adding ideas or building on, right? And yes-anding the ideas that have already been shared to build on them, but nobody's allowed to sort of detract or point out why something won't work or be negative or step on any ideas that are shared. It's like either add ideas or build on the ones that are given and set aside specific time for that. Number 2, something called planned crickets. Something I came up with another sort of client a long time ago where they were like, when I share an idea or I ask for feedback from my team, a lot of times it's just crickets. They don't say anything. And I was like, why don't we capitalize on that? And so this idea of sharing an idea or giving people a moment to think. And so what happens sometimes in brainstorming or team meetings like that is that extroverts, like me, clog up all the airspace by processing what they think out loud. And so the people that are slower kind of process thinkers that need time to think about what they think don't have time because you introduce something and then all the loudmouths in the room are like blah, 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 and they take up all the time. So having a set aside amount of time where you introduce an idea or concept and then for 2 minutes or a minute and a half, give people dedicated silence. I just want you to take the next minute and a half, jot down some thoughts and just think about this thing and then respond. Having planned time for crickets where it's supposed to be silent, let people think and process so that everybody has time to sort of jot down some thoughts and think about this before they share. I think that can be a really, really helpful tool so that you get everybody's opinion. Number 3, which piggybacks on that one, is specifically asking and inviting people to share. And this seems really obvious, but I think it actually doesn't get done very often, where if I'm facilitating a meeting where I'm specifically inviting people to get their perspective. I've noticed this inside my team and with different teams. You have people that will never share or pipe up at all. They won't just grab the mic and talk. So very specifically being like, hey, Jay, what do you think about this? Do you have any perspective on this? Inviting people specifically to share, don't overlook that as a leader or facilitator of a meeting like this. Some people will not share their thoughts unless you call on them. And I promise you, those introverted, quieter people have lots of really well thought out, brilliant ideas. They just sometimes don't always have the initiative to take the airspace and share them. So invite people's perspective. Number 4, this one's a little bit silly, but I love it because a lot of times we want to have brainstorming, but people hold back their ideas until they think of something brilliant. And so a lot of times it's just kind of quiet or there's not a lot of ideas being generated because people are sort of editing their own ideas before sharing them. So the solution here is to set aside a certain amount of time that is for bad ideas only. Some actually crazy, silly time where it's okay, let's just brainstorm and people throw out the most unrealistic, ridiculous, creative, silly ideas that aren't real, that won't work. Specifically saying worst ideas only, how can we go about this or what should we do here? And literally have people share ideas that are horrible or that require a budget that you do not have access to, just to actually open the faucet and let the sort of creativity flow with people. This is useful for a couple of different ideas. It breaks the ice and gets people to actually share or have some silliness of sharing terrible ideas of things that you would never do, which can just relieve a little bit of pressure and add some fun. Also, when you do this, you may generate or inspire some actually really brilliant ideas while people are sharing ideas that are not realistic and horrible. That happens a lot of times where we're throwing out bad ideas, and that will inspire something that's actually usable and actually great. So making specific time to be hey, cool, for 10 minutes or whatever time, it's bad ideas only, what are unrealistic, impossible things that we could do, just to get people talking and so open up this sort of creativity with that and have a little bit of fun. And the last one, number 5, I think this is really great for a brainstorming meeting to set up some ground rules and have some really intentional ground rules off the bat to say, hey, these are things that we really want to adhere to and follow, right, as part of this meeting in terms of how each of us show up. For an example of what you might set as a ground rule is that like this needs to be a safe place to disagree or share like a minority, like an opinion that's not the majority here. You have to be really intentional about how you respond to other people's ideas because we want to create a safe place for people to share ideas, even if they're not great ideas. So like creating a list of 4, 5, 6, 7 ground rules for this meeting can be really important to say, hey, let's make sure to adhere to these things. And that can address pitfalls that your team has in terms of disagreements or conflict or people sharing ideas, people not clogging up the airwaves, right? Like once something's been said, don't belabor the point, to be productive, to make sure we're giving airtime to other people, actively inviting other people's perspective, etc. So setting some ground rules like that can be also a really great tool. So I hope that one or all of or some of those 5 tools are things that you can use and take. I think brainstorming can be really important, but if it's done poorly, it can be torturous and ineffective. So cool, that's it, go be awesome. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel, or you can sign up for the Culture Drop mailing list and get these emails and videos right into your inbox.